This devotion is for May the 15th. This is a reading from the 27th chapter of Acts, verses 33 to 44. Just before daybreak, Paul urged all of them to take some food, saying, "Today is the 14th day that you have been in suspense and remaining without food, having eaten nothing. Therefore, I urge you to take some food. For it you will need to survive, for none of you will lose a hair from your heads." After he had said this, he took bread, and giving thanks to God in the presence of all, he broke it and began to eat. Then all of them were encouraged and took food for themselves. After they had satisfied their hunger, they lightened the ship by throwing the wheat into the sea. In the morning they did not recognize the land, but they noticed a bay with a beach on which they planned to run the ship ashore if they could. So they cast off the anchors and left them in the sea. At the same time, they loosened the ropes and tied the steering oars, and then hoisted the foresail to the wind. They made for the beach. But striking a reef, they ran the ship aground. A bow stuck and remained immovable, but the stern was being broken by the force of the waves. The soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners so that none might swim away and escape, but the centurion, wishing to save Paul, kept them from carrying out their plan. He ordered those who could swim to jump overboard first and make for land, and the rest to follow, some on planks and others on pieces of the ship. And so it was that all were brought safely to land. So in this piece of Acts, and actually we're towards the real end of Acts, we see Paul here, the writer of the epistles, Romans and Corinthians and Ephesians, etc. He's on a long journey in the Mediterranean Sea. Now they're sailing in the Mediterranean Sea in a very stormy time. Now, that wasn't all that odd in the Mediterranean, but it happened. Paul, in this case, was a prisoner. He was heading to Rome to plead his case. The ship, as I said, was in nasty weather. And after weeks of being in this weather, and pretty much they didn't eat, they had lightened their load, Paul encourages them to eat. And then you can see the detail here of how they purposely wanted to run their ship aground, get off of the sea, and at least get to land. Now, what's interesting in this whole process, and you kind of almost have to read back, and certainly all of chapter 27, we see Paul, who is a prisoner, and ends up going to Rome to face his death, saves everybody, directs everybody, kind of gets them to where they need to be. Now, he knows where he's going, right? He certainly would have had opportunity to escape. But instead, he works with them to save everybody. Paul's strength here came from the message of the gospel. And that's the incredible example here. Right? That Paul, living out his faith, did what was right and not what in this case was going to save his life, but what he felt God wanted him to do. That's how Paul lived his life after conversion. That's how he can set this example for us. Right? Because certainly Paul's life was not all, if you will, peaches and cream. But because of his faith, he found contentment, he found peace, he found joy. And that's what we can find too. Especially in the middle of a pandemic, and especially in the middle of all of that. That's the good news. That's the message here. That in the middle of all this, Paul was able to be peaceful and follow the word of God. That gift is for us too. It is the gift that God offers us. In the middle of all this, peace with God. We share today, I'd like to share, and please join me in saying Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long.